The casual words from Jessica, "You don't need all that space anymore," hit me like a cold wave, stripping me of my identity in my own home. Turning 61, it should have been a quiet, peaceful milestone, just another year of life. But I had imagined it differently. All I wanted was a simple dinner with the people I loved most. Nothing grand, no surprises, just a nice meal, some laughter and a moment of warmth, shared with my son Mark, his wife Jessica, and a few of my closest friends. It was meant to be an evening of calm, a small celebration of simply making it to another year. But as soon as we settled at the table, everything changed. The restaurant was one of those trendy places you can't help but feel a little out of place, with exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. It was the kind of place where everyone's trying a little too hard to look cool, and honestly, I wasn't in the mood for it. But it was a gesture of love. Mark had chosen it, and I didn't want to ruin his plans. The evening started off just fine until Jessica handed me a gift bag with the tissue paper fluffed up like a peacock's tail. I pulled out the tissue, half expecting a scarf or some little trinket, but instead I found a baby onesie. The words printed across it made my heart drop. "Best grandma ever." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard correctly. I looked up at Jessica, whose eyes were wide with excitement. "We thought it was time," she said, her voice sweet, almost too sweet. "Time to start planning the nursery." My hands froze. Nursery? I hadn't agreed to anything like that. I wasn't prepared for this, not even a little. Before I could even gather my thoughts, Mark stood up and tapped his wine glass with a spoon. Everyone went quiet, looking at him. He was smiling, but there was something in that smile, something practiced, rehearsed. "Can I have everyone's attention for a moment?" he said, raising his voice just loud enough to catch the room's attention. "Tonight's not just about celebrating my incredible mom's birthday," he began. But then the words that followed caught me completely off guard. "It's about a big change for our family. We're moving into Mom's apartment. She doesn't need all that space anymore." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I didn't know how to respond. I was in shock, and in that moment, everything, the room, the faces around me, felt so distant, so foreign. I wanted to protest, but I couldn't find my voice. It wasn't just an announcement, it was a declaration, as though the decision had already been made without my input. The atmosphere at the table shifted immediately after Mark made his announcement. It was like someone flipped a switch. The warmth I had been expecting from this birthday dinner suddenly evaporated. Mark's voice rang out louder than I had anticipated, and his words, simple but sharp, reverberated in the room. "We're moving into Mom's apartment. She doesn't need all that space anymore." I felt the weight of those words sink deep into my chest. It wasn't just the bluntness of it, the way it was said, so casually, as if it were nothing more than an everyday decision. It was the realization that my son was making decisions about my life, my home, without even so much as asking me. It wasn't a conversation, it wasn't a discussion. It was an announcement, and I was the last one to know. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could hear the clink of silverware and soft murmurs, but it was like the world had stopped for a moment. I was frozen, unsure how to react. The people around me were all looking at me, waiting for something, but I didn't know what they expected. I hadn't agreed to this. No one had asked me if I was okay with it. It was just happening, and I was being dragged along in its wake. Mark smiled his usual smile, but there was something different about it now. It wasn't genuine. It wasn't the smile of someone who cared. It was a smile of expectation, like this was all already set in stone, and I was just supposed to go along with it. I glanced at Jessica, her face glowing with excitement, as if she were the one who'd just won a prize. I wanted to say something, anything, to stop this madness, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I just nodded, my stomach churning. I took a sip of my wine to steady my nerves, but it tasted like cardboard in my mouth. And then Jessica, who had never once asked me what I thought or how I felt, leaned in across the table, her fingers tapping her phone screen as she smiled. "We're so grateful, Carol," she said, her voice sugary sweet. Honestly, not every mom would be as generous as you. We're starting our family, and this apartment is just perfect for us. We'll make it a nursery. You don't need all this space anymore." She continued, speaking, her voice a mixture of excitement and condescension, as though I should be flattered, honored, even by their decision. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that this wasn't her apartment, that I didn't owe her anything, that I wasn't ready to just give up my home to make way for their plans. But my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I sat there listening to her, feeling the walls of my own life closing in on me. The conversation moved on, but I couldn't keep up with it. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. Ashley, Mark's wife, continued speaking about what she would do with the apartment once they moved in. She spoke about how she would redecorate, how she'd remove the curtains I'd had for years, how she'd paint the walls to make it more modern. Every word she spoke felt like a personal jab. I had put my heart into this apartment. This was the place I had shared with my late husband for decades. I had fixed leaky pipes, patched up holes in the walls, and rearranged furniture countless times. This place wasn't just space to me. It was filled with memories, with pieces of my past. And here was Jessica talking about stripping it all away. Her comments were casual, almost too casual, as though I wasn't even part of the equation. She casually mentioned, "Of course you can still visit Carol. You can keep your plants on the balcony if you want." But her words didn't feel like a kind offer. They felt like she was giving me permission to visit my own home, permission to visit my memories. I hadn't been asked if I was okay with their plans, but suddenly it seemed like they had already taken control. And the worst part, Mark just sat there nodding along with her, his smile never wavering. He didn't see the hurt in my eyes. He didn't notice the way my world was crumbling around me. All he saw was an opportunity, and he was taking it without hesitation. It wasn't a family decision. It was a business transaction. In his eyes, his wife was getting a new nursery, and I was just supposed to step aside. As I sat there stunned and silent, I realized something. This wasn't just about an apartment. It was about power. It was about control. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just being moved out of my home. I was being erased from the narrative of my own life. The dinner had already turned my world upside down. Mark's announcement still echoed in my mind, a loud, intrusive sound that didn't quite seem to go away. The initial shock was slowly morphing into a deeper sense of unease, and I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, and now I was struggling to keep my balance in a life I thought I understood. As I replayed the evening over and over, something stood out to me, something that hadn't quite made sense before, but now seemed too important to ignore. 2 years ago, during a particularly rough hospital stay, Mark had convinced me to sign some documents while I was weak and recovering from pneumonia. I had barely been able to focus on what I was signing, just legal jargon, nothing out of the ordinary, or so I thought. Mark had been concerned about managing my affairs while I was sick, and in my fragile state, I hadn't given it much thought. It wasn't until later that I realized among the papers was a power of attorney form, granting Mark the ability to make decisions on my behalf if I were ever deemed incapable. At the time, I hadn't realized the weight of what I was agreeing to. It felt like a harmless precaution, just a just-in-case scenario, something responsible to do in case of an emergency. But now, sitting in the silence of my apartment with the weight of the evening's events hanging heavily over me, I couldn't help but wonder if that document had been a strategic move by Mark, not just to care for me, but to control me. I couldn't sit idle anymore. I needed to find answers. So I did what any person in my position would do. I called my lawyer, Claire, someone I had trusted for years. Her office was cold and sterile, but it offered a sense of comfort in that moment, as though I could find the clarity I so desperately needed. When I explained the situation to her, Claire's tone immediately shifted. She went from the casual familiarity I had come to know to something more serious, almost urgent. "Carol, if that power of attorney is still valid, Mark could technically challenge your ability to manage your own affairs. If you were declared mentally unfit, he could take control of your assets without your consent. He could make decisions for you. All of them. Your finances, your living situation, everything. Her words were like a slap to the face. A chill ran through me as I realized the gravity of what had happened. This wasn't just about moving into my apartment anymore. It was about Mark, my own son, having the legal right to take over my life if he deemed it necessary. That signed document from 2 years ago wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a tool, a weapon in his hands to ensure he had control if the situation ever called for it. I hadn't been paranoid. I hadn't been imagining things. This was real. The pieces were finally starting to come together. All the casual comments, the subtle manipulation, the gift of the baby onesie, everything clicked. This wasn't a sudden decision to start a family or move into my apartment. This was a part of a larger plan, one that had been unfolding for years. Mark and Jessica were slowly, quietly, and carefully weaving their way into my life, taking control of everything I had worked so hard for. As I sat in my lawyer's office, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. Claire's next words were a stark reminder of just how vulnerable I had become. You need to revoke that power of attorney, Carol. If you don't, they could use it to take everything from you. Your home, your finances, your independence, everything. I nodded, my mind reeling from the revelation. This was bigger than just an apartment. This was about my life. I had to protect myself, and I couldn't rely on Mark to have my best interests at heart anymore. The idea that my own son could be plotting to take control of my life in such a cold, calculated way was unbearable. But now that I understood the scope of their plan, I knew what I had to do. I had to fight back, and I had to do it alone. I left Claire's office with a clear purpose in my mind. It was time to take control of my own life again. Time to reclaim what was mine. I wasn't going to let anyone, least of all my own family, take that away from me. Not without a fight. I had hoped deep down that maybe I was overreacting, that the dinner had been an isolated incident, a one-time lapse in judgment on Mark and Jessica's part. But that hope didn't last long. Just a few days after the dinner, I woke up to an email from Mark that confirmed my worst fears. It wasn't just an announcement anymore. It wasn't even a conversation. It was a plan. Mark had written out a detailed transition plan for moving out of the apartment. The subject line alone, transition plan for apartment handover, made my blood run cold. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting to find a simple list of dates or instructions. What I found was far more formal, more calculated than I could have imagined. Mark outlined the dates for when they would be moving in, starting with the end of the month. He had attached a list of suggested dates for handover and even a Pinterest board titled Nursery Ideas for Carol's Apartment. I sat there staring at the screen, unable to breathe. This was no longer a casual request or a conversation about their needs. This was a business deal, a clear plan to take over my home, complete with dates, decorating ideas, and even a timeline for when they would officially settle in. How could my own son turn my home, my sanctuary, into something that was just another item on a list of his to-dos? And Jessica, she hadn't even asked me. She wasn't even waiting for me to agree. This was happening whether I liked it or not. I didn't even know how to respond. I wanted to write a long, angry email back to tell him everything I was feeling, how hurt I was, how betrayed, how confused. But I didn't. I didn't respond at all. Instead, I sat in silence, letting the weight of their actions settle over me. The apartment that had been my home for over 30 years, the place where I had raised Mark, where I had spent countless nights with my late husband, was no longer mine. They had taken it. But Jessica's next move made it all feel even worse. The day after receiving Mark's email, she called me. She was chipper, far too chipper, for what was happening, as though we were discussing a simple home renovation, not the fact that she was planning to take over my life. She spoke about how excited she was to redecorate, We'll remove the old curtains, paint the walls in a light, airy color, and create a real nursery vibe, she said, her voice dripping with excitement. It's going to be beautiful. And of course, you can still visit. You can keep your plants on the balcony if you'd like. We'll make sure it feels like home for you, too. Her words were like a slap in the face. The apartment was my home. It wasn't just a space, it was where I had built a life, where I had put my heart and soul into every corner. But to Jessica, it wasn't anything more than a space she could redecorate. Her dismissive attitude, the casual way she spoke about my home, as if it was something she had the right to do whatever she wanted with, made me feel invisible. The idea that she thought it was okay to remove my curtains to change the entire space to suit her taste was too much. And then came her kind offer to let me visit. I felt my stomach twist at the words. Of course you can still visit, Carol. It won't be the same, but we'll make sure you're comfortable when you come by. And the balcony, well, we can leave your plants there for you. The offer sounded almost patronizing, as though she was doing me a favor by allowing me to keep something so small in my own home. I didn't ask for permission to visit my own space. It was mine, and yet she had already decided that it wasn't anymore. The betrayal at that moment was complete. The more Jessica spoke, the more it became clear to me that I wasn't being included in this change. I was being pushed out. This wasn't about them needing a place to live or starting a family. This was about taking control, taking something that wasn't theirs to take. I felt completely displaced. I was no longer the owner of my own life. They had taken that from me piece by piece until there was nothing left but the shell of my home. The apartment was supposed to be a part of me filled with memories that could never be replaced. But to Mark and Jessica, it was just another project, another thing to rearrange and claim as their own. In the pit of my stomach, I knew that the decision had already been made. My home, my memories, my space, none of it mattered to them. What mattered was the life they were building, and I was no longer part of it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much they had planned, how meticulously they had moved forward without me. They weren't asking for permission, they were demanding compliance. And that was when I knew I had to take back what was mine. I couldn't sit idly by while my life was being taken from me. It was time to fight back, to protect the home that had given me everything. But I had to do it in silence, without alerting Mark and Jessica to what I was about to do. The battle for my home had only just begun. The walls were closing in. Each passing day, I felt the ground beneath me shifting, tilting towards something I had no control over. Mark and Jessica weren't just taking my apartment, they were taking my peace, my dignity, and my autonomy. What had started as a quiet birthday dinner had escalated into a fight for everything I had left. And I couldn't sit back anymore. I had to act. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how serious this had become. They weren't just planning to move into my apartment. They were systematically stripping me of my rights, my home, and if I wasn't careful, my future. My mind raced back to that power of attorney I had signed 2 years ago in the hospital. I had trusted Mark back then. He was my son after all. But now that trust felt like a dangerous mistake. He didn't see me as his mother anymore. I wasn't a person to him. I was an asset to be managed, controlled, and eventually discarded. I could see the pieces falling into place. He was using the power of attorney as a way to take control over my life. I reached for my phone and dialed Claire's number, my lawyer, the one person who could help me make sense of this nightmare. When she answered, I could hear the concern in her voice. "Carol, what's going on?" "You sound upset." I quickly explained everything: the dinner, Mark's plans for the apartment, Jessica's overstepping, and most of all, the power of attorney. "I need to revoke it," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I can't let him have this kind of control over me anymore." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Claire spoke, her tone becoming more urgent. "I understand, Carol. We'll get this sorted, but you need to act quickly. If Mark is still in control of that power of attorney, he has the legal right to make decisions on your behalf. That means if anything happens to you health-wise, financially, anything, he could step in and take over. We need to revoke it as soon as possible. The weight of her words hit me hard. I knew she was right. The power of attorney wasn't just a piece of paper, it was the key to everything Mark wanted. My home, my assets, my future. All of it could be taken from me if I wasn't careful. With Claire's guidance, I began the process of revoking the power of attorney. It wasn't easy, and I had to dig through old files, legal papers, and documents that brought back memories of a time when I trusted Mark completely. But I knew this was the only way to protect myself. It was time to reclaim control over my own life. Then came Jessica's announcement, or rather her false pregnancy. She casually dropped it into conversation, almost as if she had just been waiting for the right moment. "We're expecting," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's still early, but we're excited." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. Jessica wasn't just moving into my apartment. She was manipulating me, trying to guilt-trip me into letting go of my home. Her pregnancy, if it was even real, was just another way to push me aside to justify their plans. But something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Her tone was too casual, too rehearsed. She wasn't worried about the baby, about her health, about anything. She was more interested in making me believe that I had to let them have the apartment for their growing family. As the days passed, the more I watched Jessica's behavior. She didn't seem concerned about any of the typical signs of pregnancy, no morning sickness, no cravings, no visits to the doctor. But she continued to drop hints, as if her pregnancy was the only thing that mattered now. I realized that this was just another tactic, another part of the plan. They were trying to manipulate me into giving up more than I had already. And it sickened me to think that they could be using my desire to be a good mother and grandmother against me. With everything I was learning, I knew it was time to get organized. I couldn't afford to let my emotions cloud my judgment any longer. I started documenting every interaction with Mark and Jessica, every email, every phone call, every text message. I kept screenshots of their messages, noting the dates and times, making sure I had everything in writing. It felt strange at first, but I knew this was the only way to protect myself. If a legal battle was coming, and I was beginning to understand that it was then I needed to be prepared, I couldn't rely on my son's words or promises anymore. I had to make sure I had the proof to back up my story, the proof that I wasn't being irrational, that I wasn't losing my mind. I had to show that I was still in control of my decisions, my home, and my life. The fight for my independence had just begun. I wasn't going to let Mark and Jessica take it from me without a fight. I knew the only way I could truly take control of my life again was to leave. But leaving wasn't as simple as packing a bag and walking out the door. No, this was my home, the place I had lived for over 30 years, the place where I had poured my heart into every room, every corner, every memory. Leaving meant more than just walking away from the apartment. It meant taking back the power Mark and Jessica were trying to steal from me. So I began to make a plan. I couldn't trust Mark and Jessica, not anymore. I couldn't rely on them to be reasonable or respectful, so I needed to act quickly but carefully. I didn't want them to know what I was doing. They were already building their version of the truth using social media to make it seem like I was the one refusing to let them move forward with their family plans. I couldn't let them take control of the narrative any longer. I needed to sell my apartment in a way that kept me out of their reach. I called Sarah, a trusted real estate agent who had helped me with a few minor transactions in the past. She was discreet and professional, someone I could count on to handle this quietly. I told her the situation, omitting none of the facts, and she listened carefully, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll help you sell it, Carol," she said. "But we'll do it quietly, no public listings. We'll find a buyer through private channels, someone who won't be a part of the drama." That was exactly what I needed. I didn't want the world to know that Mark and Jessica had driven me out of my own home. I wanted to sell the apartment on my terms, not theirs. Sarah promised to keep everything confidential, and I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling for the first time like I was taking steps to protect what was still mine. While Sarah worked on finding a buyer, I began to focus on my next step leaving. I couldn't stay in a place that had been stripped of its meaning by the very people I had loved and trusted. I found a small secluded cabin in a mountain town about 3 hours away, a place that felt like it was the antithesis of everything I was running from. It was quiet, surrounded by nature, far from Mark, Jessica, and the chaos they had brought into my life. The cabin was small but cozy. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. No one had decided for me that I didn't need it. No one was taking this from me. I could breathe here. I could live again without the constant pressure of being watched or controlled. The process of moving was exhausting but necessary. I couldn't afford to leave anything behind that could be used against me. So I packed up everything, my important documents, the family photos that still made my heart ache, the furniture that had been a part of my life for so long. I called in a moving service, one that wouldn't ask questions. I made sure everything was secure, every asset protected. Every piece of furniture that had once been part of my memories was carefully wrapped and taken to my new home. As I arranged the move, I couldn't help but reflect on the lies Mark and Jessica had started telling. I had known something wasn't right when they began posting on social media, painting themselves as the victims. Jessica had posted a photo of my apartment with the caption, "The beginning of our family's next chapter," saying goodbye to Grandma's place. It was a lie, plain and simple. They weren't saying goodbye, they were taking it from me. I started to document everything. I kept screenshots of the posts, of the comments from family members and friends who had been pulled into their web of lies. They were painting a picture of me as the villain, as someone who was holding them back from their future. But I wasn't holding them back. I was protecting my own life. I was trying to protect myself from people who thought they could take whatever they wanted from me, without a second thought. I saved every text, every email, every message from Mark and Jessica. I documented the phone calls where they tried to justify their actions. I saved their Pinterest board full of nursery ideas for my apartment. I had everything ready, proof that I wasn't the one who was being unreasonable. I was the one being forced out. I knew that once I left, they would try to paint me as the one in the wrong, the one who had abandoned them. But I wouldn't let them. Not anymore. I was leaving, but I wasn't leaving without making sure they could never hurt me again. I was leaving to rebuild my life, to reclaim my space, and to remind myself that I still had the power to make decisions for me. The decision to leave wasn't just about the apartment. It was about leaving behind the lies, the manipulation, and the people who had made me feel small for far too long. I was taking my life back, and this time I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. The decision had been made, and I was finally free. After the sale of the apartment, I packed up what was left of my life, leaving behind the space that had once felt like home, but had now become a prison. I drove away with everything I could carry in my car, the remnants of my past, and a small sense of relief. I had moved into the cabin, a place that felt like a fresh start. The quietness of the mountains, the solitude, it all began to heal the wounds that had festered for so long. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe without feeling suffocated by the weight of my family's expectations. Mark and Jessica thought they had won. They thought they had taken control of my life. But I knew better. I wasn't going to just let them take what was mine without a fight. They had been pushing me, trying to force me into a corner, but now I had the upper hand. I had secured my assets, my financial accounts were locked down, my investments were protected, and I was no longer at the mercy of their manipulations. I had worked with Claire, my lawyer, to ensure that Mark and Jessica would never be able to contest my will, not now, and not in the future. I wasn't going to let them tear apart what I had worked so hard for. They could take the apartment, but they wouldn't take my dignity, my future, or my right to live the rest of my life on my terms. But even though I had secured my position, even though I was silent and had moved away from their reach, Jessica's manipulation didn't stop. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger, more desperate, as if she were trying to convince herself more than anyone else that she was the victim. She began sending passive-aggressive messages, little jabs wrapped in sweet words, as if pretending everything was okay while she was still trying to push my buttons. "I hope you're doing well, Carol. It must be nice to be away from the family, but we miss you. It's just so hard to keep things together without you," she'd text. The words dripped with false concern, but I knew better. It was all an act. She wasn't sorry for what had happened. She was sorry it hadn't gone exactly the way she wanted. Her social media posts only added to the illusion. She would post pictures of herself in the apartment, the one that was supposed to be mine, smiling brightly with captions like, "Starting a new chapter for our family," and grateful for the space we now have to grow and build a future. She had the nerve to call it Grandma's place, as if it was some sort of cherished heirloom she had inherited. I couldn't help but feel disgusted. It wasn't a new chapter for her, it was a new chapter of deceit. And she was using social media to rewrite the narrative to make herself look like the innocent party, while I was the one being painted as unreasonable. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a response. The silence was powerful. I had learned that sometimes silence is louder than any words. I wasn't going to engage in their drama anymore. I was done with it. Still, I knew that silence alone wasn't enough. It wasn't just about avoiding conflict, it was about protecting myself. So I focused on something I could control: my future. I finalized my estate planning. I worked with Claire to make sure everything I owned, everything I had built over the years, would be directed to something greater than myself, something that would outlast Mark and Jessica's manipulation. I set up a community trust. It wasn't just a legal move. It was my way of giving back, of making sure that my legacy would help other women like me, who had been financially or emotionally abused by their families. The trust would fund initiatives to support older women who needed to start over, who needed a place to rebuild their lives, without the weight of betrayal dragging them down. It was a way for me to reclaim my power and turn my pain into something positive. And Mark and Jessica, they were completely cut out. They had made their choice, and now I was making mine. They wouldn't get a cent from me. They wouldn't get to manipulate me or claim anything that wasn't rightfully theirs. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it because I had to protect myself, my life, and my legacy. I felt stronger with every legal document I signed, every piece of my future I secured. The weight of the past was starting to lift, and with it the hope of something new, something better. My future was no longer in their hands. It was mine to shape, mine to live on my own terms. The silence was no longer just avoidance, it was freedom. And I was finally free. It had been a few months since I moved into the cabin, and every day felt like a new beginning. The stillness of the mountains, the quiet hum of life, was everything I had needed. I no longer had to constantly be on guard, worrying about what Mark and Jessica would do next, what they would take from me next. The cabin, small and simple, was mine, in a way that my apartment had never been. No one was planning to change the curtains, redecorate, or move in as if they owned the place. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself. I started finding joy in the little things. Gardening became my sanctuary. I spent hours planting flowers, vegetables, and herbs in the small plot of land behind the cabin. There was something so soothing about watching life grow from the soil, tending to it, and seeing the fruits of my labor come to life. It wasn't just the plants that were growing, it was me. I was learning to nurture myself, to focus on what I could control, and to leave behind the toxicity that had consumed my life for far too long. I also began volunteering at the local community center, helping organize events for senior citizens, many of whom were in similar situations as I had been. They'd been manipulated, taken advantage of, or left behind by families who only wanted something from them. It felt good to give back, to help others who understood what it was like to feel invisible in their own lives. In the quiet of my new life, I felt like I had found purpose again. I was learning new hobbies, things I'd always wanted to try, but never had the chance to because my time had always been consumed by others. But as much as I loved my new life, I could never truly escape the shadow of Mark and Jessica. Their efforts to regain control of me never truly stopped. They continued to push, but I had learned the power of silence, the strength of not responding. Mark would occasionally send a text, a simple question like, "How are you, Mom?" But I knew better than to answer. It wasn't concern, it was manipulation, plain and simple. I had cut the ties, and I wasn't going to let them slip back in. Then one day, something unexpected happened that confirmed my deepest suspicions. I learned the truth about Jessica's pregnancy. It was never real. She had been playing a part, pretending to be pregnant, as part of the ongoing manipulation. I had always had my doubts, but now the truth was undeniable. A friend of mine from the old neighborhood had seen Jessica out one afternoon, not showing any signs of pregnancy, no bump, no special care in her actions. She had been out at a cafe, sipping on a cup of coffee, laughing, acting as if nothing had ever happened. When I heard about it, a sickening feeling twisted in my stomach. It confirmed everything I had suspected. Jessica had lied to me, manipulating me into thinking she needed my apartment for a family. She had used her fake pregnancy to guilt me into giving it up, to make me feel like I was depriving her of the life she deserved. At first I was angry. I wanted to call her out, confront her, and tell her how much she had hurt me. But as the days passed, I realized something. I was free. I didn't need to waste my energy on anger or regret. I had moved on. I had my life back. No amount of manipulation from Jessica or Mark could change that. The truth had been revealed, and the power they once held over me had disappeared. I no longer felt the need to fight. I had already won. And then, just when I thought the noise had finally quieted, I received a letter from Melissa, my niece. It was a simple note, written in her usual, straightforward way. She didn't mince words or sugarcoat anything. She told me that she had seen through the lies, that she supported me, and that she understood why I had to make the decisions I had. She validated my actions, told me that she admired my strength, and reminded me that not everyone in the family was fooled. Her words brought tears to my eyes, not because I needed validation, but because it was the first time in so long that I felt like someone truly understood. Someone had seen the truth, someone who wasn't just following the narrative that Mark and Jessica had been pushing. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest. I wasn't alone. Despite everything, I wasn't angry anymore. I was at peace. Mark and Jessica had tried to control me, to manipulate me, but in the end, I had taken my power back. I had built a new life, one that was mine. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. The past had tried to hold me hostage, but the future was mine to write. And I was finally free to live it on my own terms. The moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. The apartment was officially sold, and the funds were transferred into the community trust I had set up. As I sat back and stared at the transaction confirmation on my phone, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. The money that had been part of my life for so long, tied up in that apartment in those memories, was now going to something far greater than anything Mark and Jessica could have ever used it for. It wasn't going into their hands, their plans, or their manipulations. It was going to help women like me, women who had fought for their independence, who had been pushed aside by their families, and who needed a second chance to reclaim their lives. The realization hit me like a wave. I had outmaneuvered Mark and Jessica. I had taken back control. The very thing they had tried to steal from me, my home, my legacy, was now part of something bigger, something that would live on long after I was gone. I had given my life to the apartment, to my family, to my marriage, but in the end, I had turned it into a force for good. Mark and Jessica's plans to take everything from me, to erase me from the story of my own life, had failed. They thought they could manipulate me, but I had seen through it all. I could finally breathe. I wasn't bound by their expectations anymore. No more guilt, No more pressure, no more feeling like I was the villain in my own life. The past few months had been a hard-fought battle, but they had given me the freedom to live life on my own terms. The silence of the cabin, the rustling of leaves outside, and the quiet hum of life in the mountain town became my sanctuary. I found peace in those moments, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Mark and Jessica had tried everything to control me, to make me feel like I was in the wrong, like I owed them something, but I had let go. Letting go wasn't easy. It wasn't about forgetting the hurt, the betrayal, or the lies they had told. Letting go was about realizing that I didn't need their approval, their presence, or their validation. I didn't need their narrative. I was enough just as I was. I was stronger than I ever knew. And the best part, I no longer cared about their opinions. Not anymore. It was hard at first staying silent and resisting the urge to explain myself, to justify my actions. I had spent so many years trying to please people, especially Mark and Jessica. But now I knew I didn't owe them anything. The moment I had chosen to stop responding, to stop engaging with their toxic behavior, was the moment I reclaimed my life. Still, I wasn't surprised when I got that last text from Mark. I knew it was coming. He couldn't let go. He couldn't accept that I had moved on. His message was short, but it was heavy with accusation. You've destroyed this family. You've chosen money over us. You've ruined everything. I read the message, and for a split second I felt the old guilt creep in. It was tempting in that moment to respond, to defend myself, to explain, but I didn't. Instead, I sat with it. I let the words wash over me, but I didn't let them sink in. I realized that this was the last time Mark would have that power over me. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I had already made my decision. The silence was my answer. It was the answer I had been waiting for, not the silence of submission, but the silence of peace. I had no desire to argue with him anymore, no need to fight back or prove anything, and so I let it go. I let the message go, I let the guilt go, I let Mark and Jessica go. They were no longer a part of my life, and they no longer had the power to drag me into their drama. That evening I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the trees. The sky turned purple and the world grew still. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, letting the fresh mountain air fill my lungs. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I was done. I was free. And no one, not even Mark and Jessica, could take that away from me. As I sat on the porch of my cabin, sipping my wine and watching the sun slowly set behind the mountains, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. My life had changed in ways I had never imagined, but the most profound shift was in the way I saw myself. I wasn't just living anymore. I was living for myself. For years, I had lived for others, trying to meet Mark and Jessica's expectations, always putting their needs before mine. But now, for the first time in my life, I was making choices that were just for me. The apartment, the house I had once called home, was no longer a symbol of my life. My new life here in this peaceful cabin was my true home. It wasn't just a new space, it was a new beginning. I had built this life on my own terms. I was reclaiming my strength, my independence, and my power. No longer would I let anyone manipulate me, control me, or diminish who I was. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. The freedom I had fought for, the silence I had chosen, was my way of taking back control. And it was louder than any argument or confrontation could ever be. Mark and Jessica may have tried to rewrite the story of our family, but I refused to let them dictate my ending. My silence was my most powerful weapon. I didn't need to shout, to scream, to fight. I simply walked away quietly, reclaiming my peace, my dignity, and my life. I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I had made my decision, and I stood by it. Now, as I watched the stars slowly appear in the evening sky, I realized that this was my new beginning. The past was behind me, and I had the power to shape my future. For the first time, I was truly free, and nothing at all could take that away. Carol's journey is one of immense strength, a testament to the power of reclaiming one's life in the face of betrayal and manipulation. It's easy to feel trapped in situations where others try to control or diminish us, especially when it comes from those closest to us, family. But Carol's story shows that true empowerment comes not from fighting others, but from finding the strength to live authentically for ourselves. In today's society, we often put others first, especially family, believing that we owe them everything. We sacrifice our peace, our happiness, and sometimes our very identity just to keep the peace. Carol's decision to take control of her life and live on her own terms is a powerful reminder that we must protect our mental and emotional well-being above all else. Boundaries are essential not just with strangers, but with those closest to us. Her quiet exit from manipulation speaks volumes. It's a call to stop allowing anyone to steal our peace. We have the right to say no to relationships and situations that undermine our self-worth, no matter how difficult it may be. Carol's silence wasn't defeat, it was liberation, and we can all make the same choice. If you've ever felt trapped in a situation where someone else tried to dictate your life, I want to hear from you. How did you reclaim your power? Share your story in the comments below, because the more we share, the more we empower each other to stand strong, take control, and live life on our own terms. Your silence may be louder than any battle you fight. Let it be your strength.